Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name is Josh with Meta Endurance, and today I've got my honest review of the COROS Apex 4, COROS's latest all-mountain sports watch. So far I've been really surprised with how this has performed, but make sure to watch until the end to know whether you should get this watch for your trail running adventures. But before giving you an in-depth review, let's dive straight into the stats. So there are two sizes of the Apex 4. There is the 42mm and the 46mm version, which I have here. The 42mm version retails at $429 or 449 euros, and the 46mm version retails for $479 or 499 euros. The display is a memory in pixel display to give it a longer battery life and greater visibility on bright outdoor activities. And the screen resolution in the 42mm version is 240 by 240 pixels and 260 by 260 pixels in the 46mm version. The weight for my 46mm version here is 64 grams, including the silicone band, and it weighs 56 grams for the 42mm version with the silicone band. The materials the watch is made of is a high-strength polymer backing, along with a titanium alloy bezel and sapphire glass screen, so it's super durable, super hardy. Even in the most extreme conditions, you're quite unlikely to scratch or break any of the watch's features. The battery life of the watch is something which really sets it apart from some of the other models that COROS offers, especially because it's an adventure watch. So for the 42mm version, there is a 41-hour battery life in normal GPS mode, and for the 46mm version, there's a 65-hour battery life during your activities. Then, using it for daily use, the 42mm version has a 15-day battery life, and the 46mm version has 24 days. A few features to mention, which are updates from the previous COROS Apex 2, is the adventure journaling ability that you have with the watch, which basically allows you to take notes mid-activity via either setting a pin in your activity, which you can then view in the COROS app later on, or by creating voice notes, which you're able to do with the inbuilt microphones on the device. On the COROS website, the body is available in either a black or white color, and you're able to change whether you want the black or white silicone bands. So that means that you could choose a black body with white bands, or a white body with black bands, or a black body with black bands, depending on how you want it to look. So it's quite nice to have a bit more customization in terms of what you want your watch to look like. Before diving into the review section of this video, let me just give a brief summary of what kind of watches I've used previously. So this would be the third watch that I would have used in my running career, I guess you could say. I've used watches from both Polar and Garmin, and this is my first interaction or experience with the COROS line of watches. So I've used the Polar Vantage M as well as the Garmin Fenix 6X Pro. Overall, my initial experience with the COROS watches and the COROS interface has been really positive. I've really enjoyed using it throughout my training, and I've found it to be a lot more accurate in terms of actual sports data, as well as recovery and performance analysis than my previous Garmin watch. However, I have felt that some of the features that I really enjoyed in my Garmin watch, I can't really necessarily find them in this watch. Some of these features include the ability to be able to pay contactless with this watch, as well as being able to connect to Spotify and listen to some of my podcasts or the playlists, which I really like to have made on Spotify. I'm not super into using a lot of their technology and kind of maximizing the way that I use it. I prefer having it as a tool that I can use in my training. Very simply, I usually look at like my pace, my heart rate, and then later on in the day, I'll then review my performances and my activities on an app such as Strava or natively in the COROS app. And I found the COROS app to be extremely useful in terms of being able to do this very efficiently and intuitively. So far in the last 2 or 3 weeks while I've been using this watch, what have I really enjoyed about it? Well, I've really enjoyed the robust feel of the watch. Previously, I had the Garmin Fenix 6X Pro, which definitely felt very robust, except that felt very heavy and very clunky. Whereas the COROS Apex 4, it just doesn't have that same clunky or heavy feel to it. It's much more of a sleek watch. When you have it on your wrist, it feels much more ergonomic and much lighter. It doesn't feel like it's getting in the way as much, which is a really big positive for me, especially when I wear it during my sleep as well, and wearing it like underneath like more formal attire. It just doesn't feel like it's making as much of a presence or as much of a big impact. I also really like the intuitive buttons and their location. I've never really had a watch which has the scroll ability before, and while I sometimes like it and I sometimes don't like it, I think it's overall quite a positive experience. However, in activities, I really do wish that I did have some physical buttons which I could press to just confidently be able to say, okay, yeah, I'm going to this data screen now, or I'm going to this data screen after that one, with the scroll wheel, I find myself sometimes I go one screen too far or one screen too short, and then it kind of like I have to fiddle with the watch a bit, which on race day it's not necessarily ideal to have to kind of think about that, and then it kind of draws my attention away from the main aim, which is to run faster over distances. However, talking about the buttons, you do now have this customizable button down here on this side, which allows you to change the use of this button and the settings. So let's say you're mid-activity and you want to see your map, and no matter what data screen you're on your activity, you can press this button and you would go straight to the map view on your watch. Alternatively, you could set it so that you went straight to a different data view. So I guess that if I really wanted to, I could set it so that I could go switch between views that I found really essential on race day to kind of get around that issue that I had with the scrolling wheel button. One other thing which I've been really pleased with this watch is the longer battery life that you have on it. Even though it's still quite a small watch, you do have 24 days of battery life, which means that you can kind of forget about having to charge the watch on a day-to-day basis. I probably have to charge it about once every week and a half to 2 weeks now at this point, with my regular everyday use of the GPS features and stuff like that. So I really have nothing to complain about with the battery life. As well as the battery life, this watch also has a really loud speaker, which both I have been quite surprised by, and also some of my training partners have been quite surprised by. Everybody always mentions to me how loud this watch is, especially when it does alerts and I start activities and stuff. It's a lot louder than any other Garmin watches out there and Sunto watches, and I quite like the fact that it's a bit louder. When you're in a louder environment, it really lets you know when there's alerts. There is also a hands-free call option on the watch, which I think is really cool. And when it's connected to your phone, you can take hands-free calls through your watch. I haven't really been able to test it much recently, but that's definitely something I'd like to try in the future. With the updated internal technology of the COROS Apex 4, the map features are just incredible at the moment. You can zoom really effortlessly and the zoom is really quick. With the touchscreen display, you're able to explore the map really easily. I really like how they've kind of integrated the UI into this map technology, making it really user-friendly and really easy to operate. And while during my sessions I do use a chest strap heart rate monitor, I do appreciate the fact that the COROS heart rate monitor on this watch is really accurate, and I've been able to I know roughly what my heart rate should be at different efforts, and the watch is relatively there in terms of accuracy and getting my heart rate correct during those paces. But now let's get on to some of the things that I don't quite like about the watch. One of the things which I'm not quite sure whether it's negative is the touchscreen. For me, a sports watch doesn't necessarily have to have a touchscreen. The touchscreen hasn't been particularly smooth in terms of, adjusting things, I found. So I've now ended up turning off the touchscreen on daily use, and I only have the touchscreen usable in the maps feature. This also means that when I'm wearing, a longer jacket of my sleeves, the watch doesn't end up scrolling through random activity feeds when I have my jacket on mid-activity. The memory and pixel display also is another thing which I think is a little bit of a disappointment in terms of this watch. There are so many watches out there right now which have AMOLED displays which just show color so much better, and they have much more vivid displays. I found that I understand why they've gone with memory pixel display for longer battery life and better visibility, but for me it just kind of distracts a bit from the modern new excitement that I would usually have from getting a new watch. Having something a bit different from what I previously had, which was also a memory pixel display, would have been really nice, especially when you see other watches out there which have nice AMOLED displays which are very vivid and show a lot of color in a great high amount of accuracy and quality. As I mentioned earlier, also the lack of COROS Pay, that's quite a big drawback for me. I like to go out for runs with no phone, and it's nice to be able to just go out with a watch and be able to stop for, if I'm heading back for dinner, I can stop off at a supermarket, pay really quickly with my watch. But now I have to kind of think about, do I need to go to the supermarket? Okay, yeah, let me bring my credit card with me, or let me bring my phone with me so I can pay for it. And I think that having like a contactless pay option on the watch would really be a big advantage. On the watch, there is a new kind of band fastening system, which at first when I put it on, I was really pleasantly surprised by it. I was like, oh wow, this is really cool. This is really easy. But I found that it comes undone quite often, especially when I have like a jacket on. So sometimes it gets caught on things and it just kind of like pops out, and then I have the band flopping around a bit. It's just a minor detail. And my final note in terms of not necessarily the watch, but also my experience with the whole COROS ecosystem and app is the lack of ability to be able to make automatic routes on the app, which you do have on the Garmin app. And so now finally, would I recommend you to buy this watch? In the end, I really enjoyed using this watch, and I found it really useful in terms of tracking my performance in a really accurate way, as well as my recovery. And I found it really easily usable, and I really enjoyed how lightweight and ergonomic it felt when I was wearing it. So I'd say yes, definitely, especially for the price that it is. It's a really great option in terms of balancing lightweight, but also having the maps features and a lot of other features for the outdoors and more strenuous activities. reviews. However, I was a bit disappointed in terms of the differences between my Garmin Fenix 6, which was released nearly about 6 years ago now, and the Apex 4. The biggest difference for me between the two watches was the weight, which I really appreciated because my Fenix 6 was quite heavy, and the Apex 4 definitely feels much more, sleek. I can almost forget that it's on my wrist at some points. But other than that, I feel like I was a bit disappointed in terms of the technological advancement that I found in this watch. While I haven't been able to test out all the features of the COROS Apex 4, such as improved vertical distance measurement capabilities, since I've only really been using it around where I live, which is quite flat, I'm really looking forward to doing a more long-term review of the watch, and once I get to test it out in the mountains, doing both some mountaineering, some trail running, and also skiing later this winter. So I'll be sure to let you guys know what I think of the watch at that point later on. I hope you guys have enjoyed my honest review of the COROS Apex 4, but most importantly, enjoy your ride, enjoy your run, go beyond your limits, and see you guys in the next one.